I love segues. Not the little things you ride, the little things that transition you.
Can you repeat the rules one more time?
Sure. Well, how about this? I'll go through them one by one.
Okay.
I'll say them as I go. Is that cool? All right. So names matter. Anybody know who Grover Norquist is?
Yes.
Who is Grover Norquist? Just quickly. Who is he?
He runs a political action committee that makes people not ever raise taxes regardless of the situation.
Right. He asked congresspersons to sign a pledge that they will never raise taxes, right? I'm going to make the case, or I'll just argue, and you can disagree with me, but Grover Norquist is probably the most effective organizer in the country in terms of getting political action to happen, right? Actual congresspersons who make the decision about raising taxes or not have pledged not to do it because of his work, right? He has one rule that sits at the heart of his work that makes him probably, if not the most, one of the most effective organizers in the United States. Anybody ever heard this or read it? Know what it is? Before I tell you. People need to know each other's names. The single best thing he did was start to host a meeting in Washington every week, every Wednesday, that anybody could come to, and people will just talk. And before you talk, you say your name, right? And people just get to know who each other are, and they begin to work together. People can't work together that don't know each other, right? And that's actually at the heart of a bunch of things, including, as we said before, use the internet to get off the internet, like Dan was talking about, right? It's in the living rooms, it's in coffee shops. The names matter. That's kind of rule 3. Rule 1, who knows the golden rule? What is it? Yeah. That's the golden rule of Washington. Close. For people that didn't hear that, it's he who has the gold makes the rules. That's not the one we're going to talk about. An interesting rule that hopefully Americans like to do something about. Chris, yeah?
Do unto others as you have done to you, or expect what you've done come back at you.
Right, or treat others the way that they want, the way you want to be treated, or whatever. You can phrase it any number of ways. The golden rule generally, treat others the way that you want to be treated. I use this analogy a lot, and I'm going to use Alice. But I like to hug people. Like I like meet somebody, and I could, like, at the end of the day today, I'm going to leave, and I'll be like, man, I love you guys. This would be great, right? I love that. I'll just give you a hug. It's cool with me. Alice, how do you feel about hugs?
Invasion of personal space.
Absolutely. Right? You are not a fan. Anybody else not a fan of hugs? People that hardly know? Yeah. I'm weird. I know. Yeah. You probably wouldn't be so cool, you know. Who knows? But point is, if I treat Alice the way that I want to be treated, how does that work out for Alice? Yeah, she don't like it if I treat her the way that I want to be treated. So a slightly better way to think about this is to treat others the way that they want to be treated. Right? And how do you know what other people would want? So if I treat Alice the way that I would like to be, which is to give her a hug, she's like, I don't really want that. How do I know that she's not going to want that? I'm going to have to ask her. I have some kind of relationship with her, right? And even a small one where I just have some basic understanding that that's not what she wants. Yeah, be forthcoming, be open, and that's a lot of the values, right, that we said about how we're going to be, right? If we treat someone with respect, we have a relationship, we're open and honest, we're transparent about ourselves and what we're doing, we're probably going to have some kind of basic relationship, get to know their first name. And also, it just requires one other thing, which is rule number 2, which is hidden behind these clever acronyms, is just, you got to listen to each other. It's like a really, really basic thing. But I notice even this morning so far, right, some of us, and I do this too, this is not like an indictment, it just happens, it's human nature. You kind of wait for your turn to talk versus listening to what the person's actually saying, right? So my clever little acronym, and I tend to put things in kitschy little phrases that hopefully are more memorable, is LARA, L-A-R-A. Now, I've seen this before. What does that stand for?
Listen.
Oh, well, look at that. Both did it. That's great.
Listen, affirm, respond, add.
Add information, yeah. So listening and affirming, right? That's your first job, often in engaging a new conversation. So, what's your name, sir? Jim. Jim, you said that you've talked to complete strangers, right? A lot of Americans elect. Now, did it start with you just launching at them, or were you kind of listening to what they had to say first? I'm just curious.
It was in context, so it was a pre-established context for raising the issue.
So you kind of participated in the space, you're kind of there, and you understood what was going on around you, and you had some kind of even base level understanding of a relationship with other people, and then we were able to add information to that, right? Awesome. Anybody else had a conversation with someone about Americans Elect at some point, some way? If you haven't, it's kind of weird. So listen, affirm, respond, add information. And the way this actually ends up looking in practice often is like this. I can't write it. Right? It's you're listening, you're affirming, you're listening, you're affirming, you're listening, you're affirming. Then you respond, then you add information. Right? And it's actually, it means you're deeply committed to actually understanding the kind of the story of what the person has. Have you ever heard a vent or a rant about politics? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Right? How long can those go?
Filibuster.
2 days later?
It's amazing what happens though when you actually genuinely listen to someone and what they're trying to say, even when they're ranting and venting, and how annoying that can be to be on the receiving end of. But at a certain point, actually just kind of acknowledging that this is a frustration that they have, adding or responding, that's frustrating for me too, right? It's an affirmation and a response. Man, I really feel the same way. And one of the things that I've been doing about it is to be working with this group called Americans Elect. You also have, like, that actually begs the question from them often, what is that? How can I, what has been your result, right? It's a door opening that you have simply started by listening and affirming. Yeah.
I just wanted to affirm what you're saying, that while talking to strangers, it's more applicable to them, you listen to them, and apply your intellect to how it will help them so that they would feel attached to the community because it's something they care about, connected with. It's something they care about, and we're how that will help them do that.
Right. And you can't do that, and you can't be in contact, you can't do that without just kind of that base. This is so ridiculous in some ways, right? Like these are the things I would literally tell a 7-year-old, right? These are the great way to organize is to treat others, with kindness and respect, kind of the way that they'd like to be treated. Listen to them and know their name. They're so simple, right? They're so simple, and yet, like, we don't, just by making it our intention to do those things, it actually changes the dynamic of how we're able to succeed in building leaders. Yeah.
Have you ever been approached by a religious leader who love bombed you with all kinds of positive things? And
I have.
you felt like weird. It's like, wow, this is weird. This person's like too positive. I think in every conversation there's this side thing going on where we don't trust each other and we're disbelieving the other person. So what you're saying goes in contrast to that undercurrent, which eventually builds the evaluation we have of the person we're talking to, whether it's positive or negative. So I think to avoid groupthink and this over-positive zeal, you have to get real. And I think getting real is one of the key components to being effective.
Sure.
And that's not in your LARP concept.
Okay. So do we need to add getting real?
I'm afraid so.
How about this? Can I argue that it's been added?
Oh, okay.
That it was added with sincerity
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
integrity
Yeah,
and honesty.
I forgot that.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Realness is basically one of the values that's pervading. So again,